Thanks so much, Easy. And again, congratulations to Team Eager for qualifying for tomorrow's semifinals matches. But now, with themselves locked in, we do have a chance now to see who will be the final contestant coming through with Dignitas versus SoaR Gaming. And this is a matchup that has also been pretty heavily anticipated. Yet another EU versus NA matchup. And I can't say it enough. We've seen just how dominant EU have been so far at these LAN events. Yes, it would be nice for NA to try and make a standing, but I don't know, man. EU's looking pretty tough.
I would agree with you. The last best of 3 set today, Team Dignitas versus SoaR Gaming. There's still a little bit of NA hope with Team Eager to potentially win it all, but the other side, Obey Alliance, is looking very strong there, but they're going to be against Team Rival tomorrow in that important best of 5 set.
And it'll actually be the very first best of 5 set. And with us again today, we do have Obey's very finest, Obey Hayzer, joining us on the desk again. How you doing, Hayzer?
Yeah, good, really good. Glad to be back giving my unbiased commentary, you know?
Nothing wrong with a little bit of unbiased commentary. And, well, you finally get the chance to find out tomorrow whether it's going to be you or Alpha Jackal who's the superior coach.
Well, I think I already know the answer to that one, you know?
I'd always appreciate the cheek and tongue coming out of you.
Some very spicy words from a very spicy man, I gotta say.
Oh, man. That's a good fun all around. But we do have, like we mentioned here already, guys, it's going to be Team Dignitas versus SoaR Gaming, and this should be a very fun matchup all around. You have some very familiar faces on the side of Team Dignitas, actually, with Qvo and Trixtank, 2 very notorious names in EU, and they've had a lot of strong performances all throughout this season. But let's take a look at some of their plays over the past split.
Gets control! 3-man fearless into the power cleave. Fantastic play into the solo lane.
Trixtank fighting a 4-man knockoff.
Still on the chase. Team Dignitas out of control. He dashes away, but Arkkyl from a distance with the pop shot.
Certainly a force to be reckoned with is Team Dignitas. You've got a lot of very familiar names. There's Variety, Qvo, Zyrhoes, Trix, Arkkyl most recently. I mean, he's really been on the come up as well as a Hunter player. And Hayzer, you're the EU guy here. What do you think of this team?
I think they're an absolutely outstanding team. Obviously, Variety, formerly a member of Obey, a good friend of mine. I really like all these guys. I think they're just insane mechanically. Something they've been building up on this season is their team synergy, and I think it's really coming to kind of a head at the end of this split. So I think we're going to see something special out of them today.
Very strong mechanical team indeed, and leading it from the support position is going to be Trixtank, former Paradigm member, Orbit GG, with his old squad, you know, leaving Lobster, leaving Funballer, leaving Zalia behind to go with his jungler, QvoFred. They've been looking really strong thus far.
And Trix and Qvo, when you think EU or any team in general that they played on, you can't have one without the other. But Trix has always just been an excellent support player. His aggressive playstyle, yet knowing when to adapt to what his team needs, is probably one of the most essential parts that a support could really bring to the table. But now I honestly want to take a further look into what Trixtank feels about his own gameplay.
My name is Trixtank, and I play for the European team Dignitas. I play the support role, and I'm 20 years old. So about my competitive background, it's Smite. I'm one of the old schools. I've been in the scene for a long time. Started playing the game when I was 15. Quickly got into the competitive scene. Won my first tournament when I was 17, when I actually turned 17 on my birthday, so that was pretty huge. And ever since, I've just been a top 2 team, top 3 team in Europe. My goal this year is to win Worlds. We formed a new team with the thought behind it that we wanted to be better than the old team, and now I just want to win a LAN again. I've always been number 2, number 3, number 4, never below that though, and I'm just tired of it. I want to win now. What has made Smite more balanced, I think it's the way they have nerfed and buffed gods, and now they just found a perfect way to, like, yeah, they just balance the gods so great, and so I think there's no OP god anymore, so there's so many different strategies you can go, and yeah, shout out to Harris. At this LAN, there's really no one I am worried about personally. I think every single team have a chance. Well, I'm worried about every single team, but you can't really be worried going into a game. You just got to think that you're the best, and if you have that mindset, you can win.
That's a very strong mentality to head into a LAN environment with. Always think that you're #1. And Hayzer, how important do you think that this is for a team aura overall?
I think ego, you know, people complain about ego. People talk about people like Weekend, you know, and they say ego is a bad thing. But I absolutely disagree. I think ego is what keeps you hungry to succeed. It keeps you confident in these 1v1 matchups. And I think wanting to be the best and thinking you're the best is one of the most important things a team can have.
You can have a player with ego, but you can also have a player that has both ego and being humble at the same time, and Trix is definitely one of those players. But on his opposition side of SoaR Gaming is going to be the support player Jigz, somebody that hasn't been around the block as long as Trixtank, but for the short amount of time that he's been playing competitive Smite, he was also a coach before he was the professional player for SoaR Gaming, still making a huge impact in the North American scene.
And Jigz, like you mentioned, is somebody who's always been hanging around, and I think that that's really crucial aspect about this guy, because every single motivational factor that he has, it's a lot of thought process for everything that he does. And you can tell that he used to be a coach because of this, and I think that it's just so important when a player is able to not only look at things from a game feel perspective, but just like the overall, like grasping what the enemy team is going to try and look for and what he thinks will best counteract that.
Yeah, I think absolutely. When you're a coach, you kind of look at the game from a top-down perspective rather than the individual perspective. Kind of when you're playing, you kind of zero in on what you're doing. But Jigz, coming out of being a coach, he will have that top-down perspective. He'll have kind of an overview of what they should be doing across the map rather than just where he should be moving about. And I think he'll be able to direct the troops across and help his team, you know, play well as a unit rather than playing well individually.
Absolutely. He's been one of these players that has been theory crafting ever since the beginning of time, and he's one of the players that a lot of other players from different teams will look up to for builds.
And Jigz isn't the only member that the rest of his team is going to be looking towards. You also have andinster, and that's a name that you can never count out when it comes to Smite. And it's just really important when you think about things all around. But like I said, you can't have Andy or the rest of SoaR without really looking towards Jigz and just how much of a hallmark he has been for his team so far. So let's take a look from Jigz' perspective on things.
I'm Jigz, I play for SoaR Gaming. Started off on cognitive gaming in spring of 2015, and then I moved on to a coaching position when I got an offer from Team Solo Mid. I spent that season, the rest of the season, with TSM learning what it takes to make a top team, and then I decided to form SoaR Gaming for the beginning of Season 3. The main goal for this year is to make Worlds, of course. The only team we have any worries facing is United, because they're the only team that we don't really scrim at all, and we also didn't get the chance to play them in the actual split. Yeah, so we had a really rough start. We knew andinster would be good at mid by like the summer split or like, you know, later on in the year, and we were willing to invest that time and stay together as a roster, and he's actually come a really long way already. But we had a really rough start because we didn't really know what was going on in the meta. We had Benji, who obviously didn't want to be on the team and then pulled that stunt, and we also had a really rough schedule. We started off facing Luminosity and Eager, who mainly kept their rosters the exact same or did keep their roster the exact same. And all those factors combined, and then we had to forfeit because of the Benji situation. So all those factors combined, we started 0-6 actually, and then andinster had some family issues where he literally could not play in the games. So we had to use a sub for the next one that we've literally never played with before. And we managed to pull a split out against AOG, but after Andy came back, we didn't lose any games with our full roster after we picked up fineokay. So by now we feel like we found our footing. I'm Jigz, I play for SoaR Gaming. Started off on cognitive gaming in spring.
Hello, Jigz, and I'm glad a little bit of the Matrix going on, but nothing wrong with that. We are very familiar with Jigz, and it's always a good time all around. You can tell that they have a very positive outlook, despite how slow their split did start out. They had a lot of misfortunes coming into play for them, but it doesn't seem like any of that deterred them from being able to make it here at the LAN.
Having to go through the gauntlet, they didn't win the finals against Team Rival, but they still made it through North America, beating their rivals, E United, who did unfortunately cost them some games.
And it is unfortunate when you look at the big picture of it, but like we've mentioned, it doesn't really matter in the long run because of the fact that they're still here today and they feel more than confident, I think, especially against their matchup against Team Dignitas. And Hayzer, what do you think, ignoring the EU bias side of things, what do you think just a clear stone cut of Dignitas versus SoaR?
Okay, so basically the way I'm looking at it is I watched obviously the Rival versus SoaR games in the final of the Gauntlet. I didn't really like the SoaR that showed up in that set. I didn't think they were impressive at all. And I think Dig are a better team than Rival, maybe just. I think it's probably about even now, actually. So there are two very, very strong teams coming out of EU. So I think there's going to be some trouble for SoaR unless they've adjusted. If they've used that practice time they had between Gauntlet and now to really go hard on practice, and they've done a lot of homework on Dig, I think, you know, we could be in for a good game here. But if they show up, if the SoaR that shows up, sorry, is the same SoaR that showed up in the final of the Gauntlet, they're going to get steamrolled.
Now, to be fair, Dignitas may be a better mechanical team compared to SoaR Gaming, and SoaR Gaming still have to make some necessary adjustments comparatively to fineokay being the new solo laner for them. He doesn't have too much LAN experience, but they did have a full LAN together in the Gauntlet, whereas Team Dignitas, collectively, they have never played a LAN together as a full 5-man unit, and some of them do have a lot of LAN experience in general, so they have to find a way to get a little bit of cohesion moving into this best-of-3 set.
When you look at things, though, the only real rookie to SoaR at the moment is going to be fineokay on the solo lane, since he's the most recent addition to the SoaR roster, but I don't think that fineokay is feeling anything slight lower than confidence when it comes to his own gameplay. I mean, we saw his performance at the Gauntlet LAN, and sure, SoaR looked a little bit shaky in that finals game against Rival, but when you talk to the members of SoaR at the end of the Gauntlet, they cared a lot more about that matchup against EU United than they did against the matchup versus EU's Rival. So I think it could be a completely different SoaR that we're going to see here today.
I hope so. I definitely hope they show up. I think another thing which you can touch on is that Dig have a lot of LAN experience as well. I mean, you look at Variety, QvoFred, Zyrhoes, and Trixtank. They've been a staple throughout the Smite, kind of the lifelong competitive scene of Smite. Arkkyl, you know, recently coming in and playing very, very well at LAN last year, but we'll see how he comes into this tournament.
Dignitas are certainly a very, very strong team, especially when you look at the players individually. All of their mechanics have always been considered at the top of EU. You've got Variety, who's being regarded as one of the best, if not the best solo laner in EU right now. Then there's Qvo and Trix. I mean, that's the dynamic duo. Can't really go wrong there. Zyrhoes has always been a stellar feller, and you've got Arkkyl, the Hunter player. He's always done great.
You mentioned all those players, but I'm looking at which Team Dignitas shows up today, because Variety from Season 3 was a lot different of Variety from Season 1 and Season 2. Which Variety will show up? Arkkyl as well has made a huge statement in Season 3 with Sanguine at that LAN, but the question is, which Arkkyl is truly going to shine today?
And some very interesting bans already coming through from both of these teams, especially when you think about how it was the Thoth and Fafnir that we saw being eliminated by Dignitas, and then the Ra actually being banned away by SoaR themselves. And that's two gods that Andy tends to lean on.
Yeah, it's crazy to see the Ra go away from SoaR. I thought that would be definitely something that Andy would look towards. I think it's probably the god he's had the most success on in the split. So it'll be interesting to see how this draft unfolds, see if you know, if he has something up his sleeve, maybe?
It seems that Ra is just one of these gods where it's just a staple pick for not only andinster, but also for Zyrhoes, being able to find the long snipes, and the sustain is just very obnoxious to deal with if you're not the one to have it. So trying to figure it out in the picks and bans, both of these teams trying to get their own comfort picks in the first game.
Hayzer, do you feel as though a lot of the players from these teams share some pretty similar god pools?
Aha! It was swapped. It was swapped. The Ra was banned by Team Dig. That makes a lot more sense to me because no, I do not feel like they share a lot of gods in the same god pools. I think maybe in the jungle role we'll see a few overlapping picks, but I think in mid, Zyrhoes kind of has a different style than andinster. And we see SoaR lock in the Cabrakan here, somewhere which NA has obviously largely favored, and something which Qvo and Trick looked towards when they were on that squad of Orbit GG. So maybe this is something that SoaR have looked at and decided to take away straight away.
That is a possible flex pick, and it's also just a favored pick in NA as a whole. And Dignitas, I'm sure, are more than aware that we have seen EU stray more away from this Cabrakan. They don't seem to value it as much. And I've gotten the opinion before of AlphaJack earlier today, and Anorexia even, why Cabrakan isn't too heavily prioritized. Do you share a lot of the same sentiments?
Yeah, I just think if you play around him, if you play around the slow immunity, if you hit him with hard CC, he's not going to do as much as some warriors that come out of the solo lane, and other guardians, you know, provide better peel. So I would say that, yeah, EU definitely favors sort of the Osiris Bellona solo laners in the early picks. And we've seen Amaterasu locked in, another kind of flex pick that could go solo, that could go support.
It tends to be one of Jigz' favorite gods, though, so I would imagine that it would probably be leaning more towards the support role for Jigz, just considering how much peel and potential passive... The passive buff really is the big standout point for the Amaterasu, but I'm looking more towards Team Dignitas and their first two selections of the Terra and Cernunnos. And how do you feel about Cernunnos?
I think he's very, 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 very strong. I think he has a little bit of control, and he has crazy damage in that summer stance. So I think that's definitely a good pickup for Arkkyl. Arkkyl is going to look to make plays, get solo kills, and I think Cernunnos is a god that absolutely suits him.
Well, Arkkyl can be making plays on the Cernunnos, but andinster is going to be looking for those plays on the Scylla. The question is, what kind of setup is he going to have? Because if Jigz is playing the Amaterasu, you're only relying on that ultimate for the stun effect to find that. Cabrakan could potentially be played by Homiefe, but more than likely, that's looking like fineokay potentially.
And we're looking for the setup for SoaR Gaming, but how do you feel? I'd imagine you expect that Ravana to be going the way of jungle?
Absolutely, yeah. I think Ravana jungle is very, very strong. I mean, we see it's only won 50% of games so far this event, but I think it's possibly the strongest jungler in the game. And we see Terra picked up as well, which I think Terra is just superb. We see 3 out of 4 wins so far this tournament, and I think that Dignitas' draft so far is basically everything they would have wanted.
And if it is the Ravana jungle, can we expect Qvo to try running the Sunder like we've seen from the other Ravana jungles so far today? Absolutely.
I think one of the best things about Ravana is you don't really need that Beads of Rigas. He's got the tankiness coming in from the ult, and he's got the 2 to immune damage. So yeah, I definitely think the Sunder is an amazing pickup on Ravana, especially if you can upgrade it.
And with the Soul being the 4th selection here for Team Dignitas, that's a pretty scary lineup when you think about it. There's plenty of survivability and distributed evenly among all of these lanes. And Soul is a very strong pick for Zyrhoes in particular, considering the immunity that her 3 can provide. That's a ton of peel against the Scylla.
Taking the Fatalis effect away from the 3, but still has a lot of defensive options within her kit. Could potentially look to build into the Fatalis, which would make up for the lackluster Hunter performance that Souls have been experimenting with, instead relying more on their mage capabilities, considering the scaling on both her Stellar Burst and the Supernova.
Yeah, there are builds that you can go on Sol where the ultimate, if you hit every hit, is actually doing 2.7k damage, by the way. So that can hurt quite hard. This is something that Zyrhoes came up to me with. We see the Athena Medusa locked in. That's a classic combo, you know, taunt into the stun. So it looks like, is that going to be an Athena solo? Is that something that SoaR are likely to run?
I would probably still, at this point with the Athena being locked in, I would prefer to see Athena in the support role for Jigz, just because of how classic that combination is. And you can never really go wrong with Athena Medusa. Plus, Athena as a whole just seems to be a very strong pick at the moment. But before anything else, Team Dignitas is going to make their final selection as Erlang Shen. And Hayzer, you know better than I do when it comes to EU. How do you feel about this draft in game number 1?
So I like every god that Dig have picked. I'm not a huge fan of Erlang Shen, but I guess it does give a little bit of extra control, which the Terra and Ravana are slightly lacking. So I think that's probably a good pickup. Maybe they could have gone for a Guardian there, like an Emir, if it wasn't banned away. But yeah, I definitely like this Dig lineup, and I could see them, you know, squeezing out a win here.
Aggressive gods, aggressive players, Team Dig all the way.
Team Dig all the way. Well, it'll be interesting to see who actually does end up taking game number 1, and we've got Hindu and FTOT standing by.
Hey, thank you very much. What's good, fans? We're here for the final set of our day here in quarterfinals for Friday before the real business gets breaking open in the semis. And of course, the finals on Sunday. Dig right here. Well, they got the Cernunnos, they got the Ravana, they got all the flavor of the week gods.
They do.
But SoaR on the other side, a little bit more traditional.
Consistent as well. I like the forms of CC and setup they're going to have here. This Athena can cause a lot of problems for the side of Dignitas, especially if it's got a little by a Petrify or an I'm a Monster or a Sikkim. Yeah. We're going to be seeing that from SoaR as time goes on. This is a really close set though, FDOT. A lot of people here, from what I've been listening to, don't have much hope in SoaR. But me personally, I think this could still go 3 games.
Here's what happens. Here's the story of SoaR. So SoaR came in, superstar team on paper, and they just didn't perform well. Then halfway through the season, their solo laner, Benji, kind of throws them a curveball and straight up just bounces off the team midweek, so they have to forfeit. From there, they pick up fineokay, who's a Challenger Cup player, and they obviously stutter step, going from Benji, who is one of the stronger players, to fineokay, an unproven, as I said, pro-am type player. Now, they've had a number of weeks to really ramp up, and although they were kind of not good at all at first with Mr. fineokay, they have definitely gotten a little bit better, a little bit stronger, and a little bit more aware of this gank on the left side.
Cheeky little flank coming out from Dignitas there, but unfortunately that Bramble Blast did not hit. If it did, could have spelled a bit of trouble there for SoaR in the early game, but it's 2-on-2 in the duo. In the mid lane, it's 2-on-2 as well, both junglers involved. And in the solo lane, there's an advantage for fineokay because he did start with Hog, and that's why he's starting at the blue buff.
And so I think what a lot of people that have this negative thought process about SoaR, I think they're stuck on SoaR from week number 4 of the spring split. They haven't really looked at where SoaR is coming from, how much they've improved, and all that time that we haven't seen them, don't forget, they're practicing, they're scrimming, they're squatting up, and more importantly, they're building that synergy with fineokay, allowing them to do this. Jigz is a player, Amaterasu support is his favorite, but he needs the support elsewhere by way of crowd control. Athena solo, something that fineokay does on his Challenger Cup team, bam, works out for SoaR. We'll see if it works in this game here.
Now, with how this game has started as well, Dig got off to a very good start in the mid lane overall. That's generally down not to the fact that Raven's push power is insane, it's pretty good, but it's because he's got that threat of Sunder, and you can see SoaR respected that. They had to give up their own speed buff on the right-hand side as they look to invade, and it's given Team Dignitas a comfortable lead for now, but now that SoaR has taken their own buffs, things have evened up for a second.
So I want to bring attention to this soul here in the mid lane for Team Dignitas.
Yeah.
Zyrhoes likes weird stuff. That's always been Zyrhoes' claim to fame. The man once played Vulcan in the jungle, for God's sakes. He loves doing weird things, but there's usually a method to his madness. He's abrasive, he's aggressive, but he's intelligent. So where do you think Zyrhoes is coming from with this SoaR?
Disapparate. That's all I need to say.
That's what I was looking for?
That one ability, Disapparate, is going to get him out of so many sticky situations. Remember, he can go through the walls of Homiefe and the Cabrakan if he gets in trouble. But wait a second, it's Trix in trouble.
Oh, this is going to be first blood here, Hinduman. Meditation might have turned that around. Homiefe catches up, drops the ground pound, and drops the support. Trixtank is first blood for SoaR.
First rotation out of SoaR, it's to the duo lane. No messing around whatsoever. This is business as usual. Both these teams are both going to be trying to feel each other out at the start of this one. SoaR with a slight advantage, I want to say, just because they came to the gauntlet 2 weeks ago. It gave them a little bit of performance at LAN, which allows them to get rid of some of those jitters early on.
Sure, yeah, I think there's something to be said. I think there's a little bit to be said about playing competitive Smite 2 weeks ago versus the full 4 or 5 weeks from the regular season. But I think that's just it, just a little bit to be said. I think at the end of the day, Dignitas is a very strong team, and the fact that they're not new here. Arkkyl is the newest player, and he's no rookie. So when you look at the other 4 guys, these guys have been to countless lands. I mean, literally, I couldn't count off the top of my head. So when it comes down to that, Hindu, I don't know how much I buy into that one.
Looking at fineokay right now, I like his position in this lane. He's just allowing to variety to farm. He's not going to go and try and clear. He has a feeling that Qvo's hanging, and guess what? Qvo is hanging around here. This is good communication early on from SoaR. It's something that they kind of struggled with in the gauntlet, to be honest. One of the reasons of their downfall to Rival was...
I mean, it's also part of playing Athena in the solo lane. Your clear is not going to be that strong right away. You got to use both your dash and your shield wall, and more importantly, you want to group up those minions. So allowing the enemy to go ahead and clear out the wave allows you to go ahead and grab the entirety of the minion wave, aggro it out, create a circle, and then drop down that shield wave.
fineokay's job in this lane is to make sure that Variety doesn't get the tier 1 tower, doesn't get many kills, and when it comes to teamfight stages, try and out-trade him with the Athena ultimate coming into the correct location you need it, whereas Variety has to use that teleport or manually rotate around the map.
Right, Athena starts off with a Hand of the Gods, and she's going to cheat just a little bit. She'll be using that ultimate to return to lane just like that, landing onto a jungler, Homiefe. So instead of picking up the teleport by way of the relic, she's going to cheat and teleport to lane by way of her teammate.
Well, that's one thing Variety's going to watch this game, is recognizing when that Athena ult is on cooldown. If he can catch when fineokay backs, he knows the Athena ult's available. If he randomly appears back in the solo lane very quickly, you know without teleport that he's already used the ultimate, which is a chance for Dignitas to get aggressive.
At the same time, I mean, the Athena ultimate's on a lower cooldown than that of the teleport, so sure, Variety's going to play the game like he plays against any other solo laner, except for the fact that He's got a super TP.
Sunder used by Quvo going under the tower. The Rui's good.
Look at
the
the
walls are better.
Oh, that was absolutely fantastic. The separation via Homiefe made sure that Quvo and Variety could not collapse on a fineokay. Just that little window is all the Athena player needed to make sure that he escaped out of there. No sweat, no problem. Well done by the jungler.
And going back to that first pressure that we saw QvoFred just hanging in the jungle, that's what would have happened to fineokay if he walked up to the wave in the first place to try and clear it. That is the sort of danger field that he walks into in this lane right now. Once he gets a couple more items online, though, comes a little bit more tricky to bring down the Athena 100-0.
Listen, Athena is a powerful character. We've seen her played in the jungle before. That means she's going to be able to have that clear with the pen boots. She's going to be able to have that clear in the solo lane as well. This is not a slouch. I mean, I've been watching Athena jungle going back to the days of Dignitas when Anatoliy was a pro. That's how long ago we've seen it. And Lazard used to run this character, and all of a sudden, shield wall, taunt with the double proc, you're starting to chunk people for 20%.
Now, talking about more comps as well, you can see that both teams have drafted 3 frontliners, technically. You've got Trixtank on the you've got Trixtank on the left-hand side playing the Terra, as well as Ravana and Erlang Shen. Whereas SoaR, they've got fineokay on the Athena, Homiefe, Cabrakan, Jigz on the Amaterasu. This puts actually a lot of pressure on these damage dealers to stay alive in these fights. And coming back to what your original point was about this SoaR in the mid lane, one thing that you can't do is deal damage if you're dead, and that disapparate will get him out of clutch situations, potentially going forward.
Yes, yeah, I like the soul pick in a meta where Poseidon is rampant and the Scylla just as much. Soul's going to be able to immune a lot of that nonsense. Homiefe drops his ultimate, not going to find a kill. But look at the rotation from Arkkyl. Here he is, drops the brambles on the backside, and he's getting ready. Nobody's controlled, so the ultimate not going to be used.
Interesting choice though, because once the Athena ult came out, you saw Dignitas sort of renege on continuing that engagement. Back away from the fight, they were looking for the pick on Homie, and they might still be doing that actually after, because Homiefe's lazy backing.
Oh, he's going to get caught up by Arkkyl, and he's coming down the lane. Trixtank finds this done. Couple of basics out of Arkkyl. Here's the third player. QvoFred shows up. Nice little stun, but it's just a simple reprieve before QvoFred puts him in the ground.
So it's 1-for-1 there, but I don't understand how SoaR got themselves a little bit discombobulated down that left-hand side as well. What you ended up seeing there was that everybody just kind of hung around and waited patiently for a moment or two.
Right side, Team Dignitas is getting a little bit frisky. 1-on-3. We're seeing Variety go ahead and try to invade the speed buff, and he might just get away with it. Fine, okay, charting the dash. There's a slow. There's a little bit of damage. Watch this. Chunk!
But meanwhile, what's going on, F-Dot? Left-hand side, Gold Fury's down. Variety got the buff, but not only did he get the buff, he baited them long enough to allow Dignitas to do a sneaky, sneaky backdoor Gold Fury.
Smite 101 classes in session. Variety is your adjunct professor here, making sure that everybody understands when there's too much weight on the right-hand side of the map, you go ahead and you take advantage on the left, making the first objective of the game go the direction of Team Dignitas. And that'll put them up just a little bit by about 500, 700 gold.
Now going back to SoaR as well, they did play in the Gauntlet. That was important for them as well.
All right.
And with the Gauntlet, with what happened there, Zyrhoes does have a quick pause going on here. SoaR managed to get to the Gauntlet and have a good time, and that allowed them to be in a really, really good position and actually allow them to continue to pressure as time went on.
So it's 2-1 at the moment, 22,000 gold, pretty much
I'm
even.
Dig.
As I said, I'm SoaR apparently.
I'm going to win.
I'm just SoaR from this cast.
Me too.
Pauses are going on right now, a little bit of technical difficulties with the players. As we get more information, we'll feed that to you, of course. But at the moment, really what we're looking here is a very even setup. We've seen some starts off from SoaR, some starts off from the other guys. I'm really not excited either way. I think both teams are just off to a slow start.
Before the pause, though, we saw SoaR go to the Gauntlet. Their first LAN performance as a team was pretty solid. Got themselves to the finals, obviously, to make it to Masters here. But it wasn't as crisp and clean as they would have liked. One thing we've not really discussed is the fact that Dignitas as a squad haven't been to LAN together before. So it's a lot of a learning experience for these guys to be able to find the synergies amongst the team, get used to the setup. Obviously, they've all been here before and hung out, but it's a different story when you've got to play in game together.
That's also the scuttlebutt around the scene, is the fact that these guys haven't exactly gelled perfectly together just yet. Still a work in progress. So this first LAN, very, very important. Back to the action, 8 minutes on the clock, 2-1. Read the kills. We've got a very even game here, folks. fineokay is going to get harassed a little bit by Variety and jungler QvoFred, but got a jungler of his own. Homiefe shows up. Variety and Qvo don't want to dive.
Dancing the Oracles on the left-hand side as Dignitas get their way with them once again, just allowing themselves to stay a little bit further ahead than that of their opponents thanks to that Gold Fury that went down a little bit earlier on as well. So it's put them in a good spot for the time being. Arkkyl on the Cernunnos. Cernunnos very much talked about, but at the same time, we've not seen ridiculous amounts out of him just yet, but he has been pretty consistent from what we can tell.
I really like this matchup for Vetium specifically. Vetium is a guy that, you know, doesn't really want to take all the fights. And by playing the Medusa, he can kind of just sit back, toss his ability on the wave, and play it safe. Guess what character that reminds me of, Hindu?
Medusa?
Neith.
Oh.
And that's Vetium's kind of claim to fame, is that Neith character. That's what he's known for. Medusa going to be able to do the same thing, but have a different impact. I don't want to say a more impact, but a different impact by way of team fight.
Well, Medusa's one of these that like to be fair, Vetium, I should say, he's one of these that likes to sit back for the most part and focus on his position more often than not. Try and get his abilities off from the back line, stay relatively safe, and then look for the ground and play when he gets support. Just like we saw Homiefe rotate here to the left-hand side onto Arkkyl, that's when you're the only times you'll ever see Vetium look for aggression.
fineokay looking for variety here. Has two more players in the wings.
Beautiful.
Big crush. The ultimate's from the mid lane going to miss. Here
He's
comes
still dead.
Jigz and looking for the stun. Can't find it. Variety.
But he walks straight into Homiefe. Luckily enough, though, reinforcements for Digger here. Variety got the heal off in time, and it was the turtle more than anything else that bought him enough of a window. But because of that situation on the right-hand side, Dignitas have pressure in mid.
Right, and this time around, left side, the Gold Fury already toast. That's not going to be the opportunity. Dignitas don't really have anything to gain off of it, which is why we saw that attempt. And look at that. That right there, that's the damage I was talking about, Hindu. All she has is boots.
That's true, but the benefit is the Emerald Talisman is coming online for Variety right now. Getting for those magical resistance early on against an Athena. He's got to be careful because he's going to eat the Shield Wall Taunt combo quite a bit this game, as well as a Cabrakan that's in the jungle, as well as a Scylla. Magical defense is definitely the order on the table for Variety, and actually most of the front line.
Speaking of that Scylla, I don't think it was anything that Variety did that got him out of there. It's the fact that Andy missed the ult.
It's a good point, but the CC chain wasn't correct. So Andy missing the ult doesn't necessarily have to come down to just Andy as a whole. The CC chain could have been a little bit cleaner, and it would have secured it. But the turtle form from Variety, because his ult was actually cancelled, then he had to ult again and turtle away.
Sure, if the light is red and my brakes are cut and I go right on through it, that's my fault. Because I didn't even try my brakes. I just assumed I could screech to a halt. So I see where you're coming from, but I still got to give it to the mid laner. You didn't like that one. I did.
I know she did. And I was like, K?
My point is, if you're going to play Scylla, that's her whole thing. You have to be able to nail the ultimate. Crush is free damage. It's free damage. It's the size of a football field. I don't care if you're talking American or football. It's that big. Pitch. That's the word, right?
See,
it's that big.
That one was better. That one was better.
Yeah, you like that one?
The Oracles this time around, though, should go the way of SoaR because nobody is here from Dig. Because guess what Dig are doing after? They are playing the map so well right now. This is a Gold Fury, a Portal Demon, pressure on the Tier 1 tower, and they're not really making too many mistakes in this. If anything, it's SoaR being ropey-doped in a weird way. They're going right, and the rest of Dig are going left.
Well, right now, Team Dignitas, this is the result of Zyrhoes. Okay, Zyrhoes is an interesting, polarizing figure. When his leadership goes well, he's very intelligent and plays the map like this. This is classic Zyrhoes playstyle. But if you don't buy into what Zyrhoes does, if you do kind of fight with him a little bit, that's exactly what happens. You butt heads, and then you see the result in team fights. Should we go to a listen-in? I'm very curious to see what Team Dignitas listens sounds like when they're winning versus when they're losing.
Oh, for sure. I think there'll be descent in the ranks potentially with this squad because they've got a lot of people on this team who do have the ability to have egos, and it's actually because they are of a high level, all these players, but most of them have been shot callers on their teams at one time or another, or come in pairs, like Qvo and Trix.
You know, we said that with Eager once upon a time. That was the whole big conversation, talking about, do these guys have the egos? Can they do it? Can they get over their end of it?
Sure.
Listen, I didn't buy it then. I don't know if I buy it now with Dig, but I think it's a little bit more realistic knowing these guys. Variety and Zyrhoes definitely are coming together, which is why they've been successful this season. But should things go awry, I don't know.
We talk about the descent in the ranks being a potential threat to every single team, especially when it's a new team as well. But the difference is how they handle it and when they actually find that form of who's in charge. At the end of the day, one person will be in charge, whether it's the person who does the most damage, like whoever's leading the game in the highest level, Obey like to go with that sort of strategy, or it's the support and jungler because they're the ones that see the bigger picture on the map and generally should have more awareness more than the mid laner or the hunter who just want to kill.
Or it's just Lobster, because you're Lobster.
That's true as well.
I think it has much more to do with the individuals on the teams than you might think.
Fatalis coming out from Zyrhoes here on that Soul in the mid lane as well. Went for the Bancroft start into the Soul Stone, and then once he's got boots going as well, Fatalis is the next order of the day. Now this will actually, with the movement speed he gets from Disapparate right now, he's going to be very, very difficult to pin down.
This is going to be a basic attack Soul. This is interesting because my personal view, I stress personal, is that Zyrhoes, or excuse me, Soul, is now a mage. She formerly was a magical hunter. Now she's a mage that happens to have a neat passive that shreds towers. But Zyrhoes still building her with that in-hand mentality. I want to see how it pays off.
Now he's building with the in-hand mentality, but if he continues his build going for power now and not going for any other forms of attack speed, like the rings that are available in the trees for the items, he could just be going for that for the extra mobility, extra safety in these fights, which allows him to just reposition a little bit better. Plus it's got pen, so it's not going to hurt his magical power build in a weird way.
Sure, absolutely, and I think the fourth item will be the telling point right there. The Bancroft kind of hints that he's looking for in-hands, but Bancroft is also just cheap power, and a lot more players have been more accepting of it. So
Vetium. That was beautiful. Well, I don't think he actually got both of them in the end. I like the fact he hesitated trying to get the last hit on the last one.
Yeah.
But he burnt one down first of all, which is very important when you're trying to go for a contested objective like those Oracles. You've got to make sure you get at least one, because getting both low and having the opposition strip them both away is brutal.
One of my favorite things about the Season 4 map, without a doubt, having a non-binary objective there for teams to go ahead and compete over. Listen, if you get it, sweet, then you get vision if the other team does, but you can split it down the middle. You can't split any other buff in Smite. You can't say, all right, I get the HP 5 and you get the tower damage from the Fire Giant because we both hit him at the same time. One guy's got to win. I love the fact that that's a non-binary objective. I think it was a very cool move.
Do you know what? Most of the time on Reddit, people have been talking recently about the fact that they think Smite is scripted. Did you see that, Fred?
I didn't.
You didn't? There was a supposedly scripted thread for Masters, right?
Okay.
I'll tell you the script for this game. You ready? And then everyone can prove, if I'm right, then here we go. 22 minutes, one team fight, game over.
Really?
That's where this game's going, because Dignitas are playing to what EU like to do, which is sit back and farm and wait for the picks, wait for the objectives, wait for the right opportunity.
Sure.
And SoaR, generally, they're normally a little bit more hot-headed. At least Homiefe will go off a little bit crazier than he has done so far. And now I just expect it's going to be one team fight, a Gold Fury or a Portal Demon, that will turn this game on its head completely and will actually have someone in the lead.
SoaR are playing as if they're playing on Team Dignitas' turf. You mentioned that that's sort of the EU style. We wait, we bait, and we kind of hang out, and we see what happens when it comes to fate. But SoaR, on the other hand, like you said, they like to bang, they like to hang. Here, they draft a very late-game composition. Arkkyl going to get out of jail right there with the Scylla and the Amaterasu.
Yep.
And Homiefe on the Cabrakan, more of a setup man rather than a I'm going to run you on the Thanatos.
Yeah, both him and Athena will be towards the late game, just be looking to set up as much as possible, peel for the back line. And to be fair, I'm expecting to see Homie more than likely. He's not his style though, but I'm expecting him to be more aggressive.
Where's that hole from? I missed that. On Homiefe's build, he has the 2-starter on his boots, a hole, and then Voidstone.
Didn't exactly see where he went either, I'll be honest. Did not see exactly what he sold there. It wouldn't have been something too expensive though, but I think it was just a transitional change to make sure he got the right items. With that Voidstone though, it gives more power to his team, less power to the opposition on terms of defense right now as Jigz goes on the Zyrhoes for a second, but there's that quick Disapparate that immediately gets him away from the danger.
Variety making the rotation after already taking out the tower on the right side. Not too big of a surprise there. Shen supposed to be able to have a little bit more push than the Athena.
Sure.
What's more important there other than losing the tower is the fact that the Athena's nice and even with Mr. ES.
And the thing is, when you go into that lane matchup Athena versus Shen, you're expecting to lose your tower. The question is, SoaR, we're like, okay, how much time can we buy before we lose this first tower on the right-hand side? Just under 17 minutes, it's not doom and gloom for them. They've got to a point now where everybody's a little bit healthier, got a couple of items online, and it means they can contest this next Gold Fury a little bit easier.
Athena not having the teleport means that tier 1 tower on the right side is even less important. She's TPing to players, not the structure. At that point, it's just 500 gold.
But they have to play the game of who goes first, Erlang Shen teleport or Athena ultimate. If Variety can stay in this lane longer and potentially get a tier 2, that's helpful. Or if we can see the Athena come across beforehand, it can cause problems.
And Erlang Shen very deep on SoaR's side of the map, looking towards the blue buff, actually. Yeah, I'll turn back around and head towards the lane.
Yeah, really farm focus from both teams now. I expect about 22 minutes because I think that's when they'll see the next Gold Fury go down more often than not. And you are correct, though. SoaR's late game is a little bit better than that of Dignitas. I mean, Cernunnos is a little bit unproven in the late stages of the game in terms of high-level competitive play. This is really the first event we get to see him in the highest terms at Masters. So we'll see how he does. We know he's got a late game in him. We know he's a potential hyper carry with the steroids he's got available to him.
Very important play right there. fineokay executing the minion camp with the Hand of Gods. That's very important for the Athena to have. And when it comes to the Cernunnos, he is, in my opinion, the best hunter in the game. But as Ataraxia said ad nauseum yesterday, just a hunter. The impact that a hunter has in the game, late game, is very high, but it's not like some of the mages or some of the warriors. And so he's just a hunter. I think that Teamfight Ultimate and the Bramble shot can actually impact the teamfight a lot, just like a Medusa, but he's just a hunter. And I really want to stress that fact because I don't think he can single-handedly change a game despite being arguably the best hunter in the game. Does that make sense?
It does. Vetium on the left-hand side just met that Bramble Blush now. Here comes QvoFred, rotating over to the left-hand side now. In comes Homiefe with a blink onto Arkkyl. The beads are down, the Aegis is down, the Tremors are wrecking through.
Trixtank coming through on the right-hand side. He might be able to change this one. Gets the root onto 2 players. Still a 4-on-3. Variety makes this a 4-on-4. Jigz is going to get rooted, but a meditation heals up SoaR, baby.
Fury. SoaR can go for the Gold Fury right now. There's only 3 members here of Dignitas able to defend this one right now. And Variety and Zyrhoes both heading towards the mid lane where Andy's already there to farm. The problem is that because Andy just showed presence in mid, SoaR can't even attempt the gold. I'm surprised they didn't look at that, especially because Andy has the I'm a Monster and there is a Wrath available in a few seconds' time, or should I say Hand of the Gods for fineokay.
Yeah, very interesting decision process there. And the Gold Fury will be started by the red team. Vetium's here and local, but the Gold Fury already down. Team Dignitas successfully get it. Andy popped up in the ultimate, and for the second time this game, won't be able to use it.
Don't understand what SoaR were thinking there. They all left the Gold Fury at the same time. They knew Dignitas were hanging around the area. They had a chance to start it themselves if they wanted to go for it. Instead, they just leave it to Dignitas, who take their second Gold Fury. And now it's up to SoaR to try and go for the Portal Demon to answer this back.
But even still, Dignitas are here and local. You know what? Let's ride along with the black and yellow Team Dignitas as they try to disrupt.
Nice out. Chill. I have healed too.
I'm sorry.
Nuke it, stop it.
Get it.
Face.
Nice.
Back. Get timers.
What the fuck out of left lane?
Get fucking killed, bro.
Look FG, kill FG.
Just back.
I'm gonna get the divorce. Come and do divorce for me, boys. 1T for it. Team up here, Harry.
Look for him.
I come back.
Cover. Look for him, bro. Kill him. I have ult soon. Go on him. Keep going. Come in.
Capra.
Get Capra here. Push left. Go.
Go back to FG.
Reset. Go back. Watch and go in again.
I'm getting this mid camp.
Go back someone. If you need to back, then back now.
Back in.
Now, I have ult up. We can back.
I'm fine.
Fade the fight.
So we get a little bit of a taste of what we're talking about. Team Dignitas, they successfully go ahead and take away the Portal Demon. They get the kill on the Cabrakan, but right away you hear that sort of devolution. Back. Yo, if you want to back, just do it.
I'm okay, but I hear commit. That's the one word I was looking at. I'm talking about commitment. They're committing on Jigz.
And he's in a deep... Oh, wow. That's just that. That'll be another notch for Arkkyl, number 4 on Team Dignitas, taking down the support.
And this is just Dig grouping up as a 5 right now. SoaR don't know how to answer this back. I'm quite surprised that SoaR don't go to try and help out a little bit more. They've got Athena with taunts, they've got Scylla with roots. Just a crush damage on its own could turn a fight when the group's up that tight.
You know what? You changed my mind in the matter of 1 second. I hate when teams try to help out the person that's clearly dead, because what are you going to do? Toss a crush underneath them? But you're right. Everybody on SoaR's a support.
But look at this. The Fire Giant is already below, down to 25%. Homie with the hero run won't make it.
Team Dignitas get the Fire Giant. Vetium shows up with a great Petrify, but it's far too late. Zyrhoes takes one out next to Soul. Arkkyl picks one up. The True Hunter, Variety gets one as well. Everybody eating.
The boy that lived is still alive in the back, but I don't think that tier 2 tower on the right will be. 5 members of Dignitas with the Fire Giant as well. I said 22 minutes, by the way. It wasn't a real team fight as such.
Oh, no.
But I was right.
Oh,
the script is still going.
Oh, we're going to hear about this. We are going to hear about this.
It's like
one.
I've casted games before, you know?
No.
I can see it coming.
You haven't casted anything.
I know.
Andy, 1-man army versus 4. Fortunately, this game doesn't give Andy extra benefits for being one-man army. The 4 players taking out the Phoenix on the right-hand side. That one gonna be free.
And now we've what Zyrhoes did in the mid lane too. He pressured Jigz back, make sure that tower is not going to be available for them. They can even swing to mid immediately without having to back, unless they choose to back, which is an option available to them. There's
If
extra
you want
gold
to
in the
back,
banks.
back right now.
Okay, I will.
Listen, back.
Okay.
Fine, just back.
To be fair, it was more like this, and it was Trix who was saying that as well for you guys at home. Trix was trying to make him use the portal. That's what he wanted to do.
Exactly.
He was like, listen, don't mess me around, because I want you through this portal as quick as you can. Go home, shop, and come back quick. Okay? Do a quick shop run.
That's what he does at LAN anyway.
Pretty much.
Goes home quickly and shops. Trixtank, a really fun individual. Loves to have fun. And right now, him and his team absolutely having a lot of fun. 23 minutes on the clock. That's a minute later than the script says. 7-2. And Team Dignitas up by 12,000 gold, give or take.
I don't want to be too rude towards SoaR here, but they've not actually done anything since the start of the game.
No.
And that's my worry comes from, because Homiefe got off to a fantastic start. He pressured left-hand side, he pressured around where he could, a couple of ward drops, but then as soon as those Cabrakan ults have been used, that was it. It seems that SoaR was just like, okay, we'll sit back and farm now, but you can't just keep giving things up over and over again.
I don't mean to keep bringing it up to slander Andy, but once or twice you'll see the Scylla ult pop up and you go, oh, we don't have the situation, We've seen this Scylla ultimate be used not defensively and still not come up with anything far too many times for that to actually be the pick. I'm just not happy with the Scylla in this game right here. Big attack coming out of Team Dignitas left-hand side. Jigz is in trouble, half HP, he's rooted, he's knocked up as well, and QvoFred puts him in the ground.
Just look at how SoaR just running away right now, leaving every man for themselves because they've used their ultimates and they can't stop the advance of Dignitas. This second Phoenix goes down, and Dig have only got one more they need.
Listen, man, Ravana in the jungle has been the gamble. And
oh my lord! Oh, by the way, why Soul? That's why Soul. That was a Scylla. At least the stain on the floor is anyway.
Out of this world, just gone. Wherever she was, she's left one place, and that's your dreams and that's your heart. Right now, Team Dignitas have some other dream, and it's going to be game 1.
Go back to what you said about the Soul build too. He went Fatalis, and then I thought he was going to do that. Went for full power, but used the Fatalis for the mobility, gives you some penetration as well. Dignitas after a flyer. There wasn't much to really talk about in that one, let's be honest.
No, I mean, that was just Dignitas really doing whatever they wanted to do. I think that the draft was very intelligent.
For both teams.
And you gotta give a shout out to Biggie. I don't think that a lot of the fans at home know Biggie was a competitive player in the Oceanic scene, and he sort of leveled up to this European coach position, and he's been a very big impact on Dignitas. We discussed it earlier in the game, talking about the volatile personalities on this team. Biggie is a real big part as to why they're able to make it work.
And he is, because even Zyrhoes, Trixtank and them are like, listen, when Biggie first came on, it was like, oh, okay, we'll see how this goes. But having him in, they're like, yo, you're really important to us. Like, these are actually part of the squad now on Dignitas. He's not just seen as the Oceania guy, because we bring him as a tag-along like we do Husey, you know, just to make him feel better about his region.
It's actually really funny because, listen, you're still doing the thing, I get it. There's 5 players on that team. Now you're doing the thing to me.
I know, sorry.
There's 4 players on that team. I'm going to leave Arkkyl out of this conversation.
Sure.
That absolutely have every right to say, we know better than you. 4 players that have been around the block, that have been to LAN, that have won LANs, that have been successful, that have won splits. They've got all the hallmarks, the accolades, etc. And they let an Australian player, Oceanic scene, not too hot, come in and coach them. Let that be a lesson. If these guys can accept Biggie to be their coach and help them succeed, everybody should put your ego in your back pocket and just let everything come to you. I think Biggie has been a big part of what they do.
These are my keys.
Usually the wallet goes there. It's something my old music teacher used to tell me. It makes sense. Maybe I'll break it down some other time, but that's my analogy. To break down the game, we've got a desk.
Thank you so much, F-Dot. And I would have to wholeheartedly agree with that statement. Biggie is a part of a large part of the reason why Dignitas is able to rein in all of these personalities and just keep these guys level-headed. Trixtank himself will say it over and over. He really appreciates everything that Biggie brings to the squad, but more importantly, what Dignitas were able to bring to SoaR in game number 1. I think one of the most standout points happened right there at the very end. You brought it up before the game even started, was that soul damage, and it really came to play. That was an interesting sight.
Yeah, I haven't actually fact-checked that one from Zyrhoes, but that looked like a lot of damage. The 2 into the ult.
Just a little bit.
Was the Scylla completely full HP? Goodbye. Not even time to shoot off the 3. Got knocked up, dead. absolutely destroyed. And I think that was exactly what Dig to SoaR that game. They controlled the game from start to finish. They controlled objectives, they controlled lanes, they controlled everything they needed to do. You looked at Variety taking away speed buffs and distracting 3 or 4 people, while Dig were doing the Gold Fury on the other side of the map, and that just shows the cohesion they've got, the communication they're using here to you know, get one over on SoaR.
Andinster did not have a clean game, unfortunately for him. You know, missing the ultimate onto the soul lane of Variety was really a big impact for him as he escaped under the mid lane. Unfortunately, couldn't get in position to steal away some of those important Gold Furies that Team Dignitas was able to do basically for free. Because the game was relatively even in terms of the kill count, you know, 1 to 2 for a majority of the game was heavily in Team Dignitas' control as they were able to out-farm SoaR and secure those Gold Furies.
Objectives are a large part of Smite, and if you have control of the map, that means that you have control of the objectives, and that's exactly what Dignitas was able to do. Securing all those Gold Furies really contributed to the lead that they were able to establish over SoaR, and just made it ever so difficult for the Cabrakan pressure to really have its full presence, like we've noticed so many times before when Cabrakan has come into play. But I really have to ask you, Hayzer, as a coach, how did you feel about that start from SoaR? Because if you notice, there was 3 Boombas on the side of SoaR.
So it's something which NRG do as well. I thought it was interesting with the Athena. Athena obviously has great buff clear with the 3 at level 1. So I think they wanted to secure the blue buff with the Hog and the 3, and obviously have the ult to move around the map rather than having the teleport. So it was an interesting strategy, but personally I think you share farm too much in Smite to have 3 Boombas. I don't think you're getting enough benefit out of it. I think you can just about stretch to 2, but I think 3 is just a bit too much.
And even with the Hog on Athena, it just seemed like it didn't have enough secure still for SoaR Gaming. They just couldn't contest inside of those objectives due to the control that Dignitas was able to maintain all throughout game number 1. And I do have to, again, bring it back to the Fire Giant initial point where Arkkyl was just completely popping off.
Absolutely. This Hunter player from Team Dignitas playing the Cernunnos was able to do a huge impact in this engagement. After securing that buff, he just basically free casted. The damage between him and the Soul on Zyrhoes, those 2 hyper carries were just doing fantastic work in these team fights.
And it's really important whenever a god such as Cernunnos is able to pop off. Hayzer, you appreciate this pick more than anybody else, I feel like, just because you recognize how strong of a god he is.
Yeah, I definitely think one of the biggest things in his kit that people kind of underrate is the ultimate, which is obviously seeing a nerf next patch, but right now it's pre-nerf Cernunnos. So you saw Arkkyl take advantage of that ult a lot. It gives not only the damage that it puts out and then the CC turning people into boars, but it also gives area of effect, like denial of entry almost. So you cannot walk through this bit. It's almost like a Zeus ult in that.
Well, we know everything that went wrong for SoaR Gaming in game number 1, but what would you like to see SoaR try and bring out in game number 2 in order to find their way back into this competition?
Less jank, honestly. Cabrakan, Amaterasu, Athena in their unconventional roles was just a little bit too far-fetched for SoaR Gaming. You know, they had a rough first half of the split. Second half, they started picking things up after they got fineokay, started making some plays, but this is not the SoaR that we're expecting to see out of their second half split.
We are seeing SoaR, though, facing off against EU opposition, and we've seen them predominantly going towards the NA side of things. I mean, they haven't really had a chance with this roster in particular altogether to face off against these EU teams, and I think that that's an important aspect to always keep in mind. I mean, you have the rookie player, fineokay, but you do have the leadership potential on the side of andinster. Homiefe is certainly not unfamiliar with when it comes to EU, and neither are Jigz or Vetium, but it can be difficult opposition facing off for the first time as a team in a LAN setting.
Yeah, I definitely think it's a different playstyle. You almost saw that in the picks and bans. You saw sort of NA prioritize the Cabrakan, whereas EU were looking for, you know, Ravana and strange things for Zyrhoes like SoaR, but that he makes it work, you know. But I definitely think if you look at the jungler matchup there, you saw, I think, Homie did about 1/3 of the damage of the Ravana that game of QvoFred. So I definitely think we might see that taken away this time. They just need to adjust their picks and bans, you know, get discussing what went wrong that game and adjust going into the next one. Maybe draft a bit more pressure around the lanes.
Well, SoaR